Now, we had done Sutra 17, that is Vitarka, Vichara, Ananda, Asmita. Shall we start? Thank you. Okay. Right. We had done the Sutra 17. Now we want to look at Sutra 17 from the eyes of Tawariaji, how he has treated Sutra 17, because it is he's treated it in a very different way, and he's taken it right, he has shifted it from book 1 to book 4. So before we go into the explanation, I want to just give a small outline of Tawariaji's science of the brain. So I'll just try to explain it a little. So Tawariaji says that every second, this body-brain system of ours receives 30,000 impulses from surrounding. That is the 5 senses. They take in 30,000 impulses from the surrounding area. So if I'm looking at you, then you are flowing in as electromagnetic impulses. In our Shastra, these electromagnetic impulses were called as tanmatra, right? So whatever we see, whatever we hear, it is broken down into electromagnetic impulses. Those electromagnetic impulses flow through what he calls 5 sense channels. He says these 5 senses are just the doors, right? And they touch a molecular brain or a brain inside called the manas, and there things start happening. So I want to explain that science a little. So first of all, these 30,000 impulses or tanmatras which come into the body-brain system, you can take them as bits of information, right? So everything that is around me, which my senses are seeing, is broken down into bits of information, and that flows in from the 5 senses. I don't want to make this complicated because he has gone very deep into the senses and the sense channels and where they touch and all that. And they rise up the backbone and they come here to a place which he calls as taluka. And we can call this as the medulla oblongata. And here something happens to these impulses. Now, just as we have a physical brain, Tawariaji says that we have a molecular brain or an astral brain, which he calls as manas. And this manas, because these impulses are flowing in at such fantastic speeds of 30,000 bits of data every second, so they take the shape of a flowing river and they come in and they hit the manas, or the manas goes out from the 5 sense organs, takes those impulses and brings them in. આમાં ફ્લો તૂટી જાય ને તકલીફ થઈ જાય છે. Now, these impulses are met by memory patterns. Now, he has a coding for how this is done, but I don't, because this is the first time I'm explaining this, I'm not making it complicated. Usually people who have been with me for a few years, they tell us that after the third or fourth time, we are really able to understand what you're saying. So I'm just trying to give a small outline. So try to make a drawing. So something is coming from outside. It is called a incoming impulse. Something comes from within, and that is called an identical memory pattern. Now he says memory is of two kinds, memory shallow and memory deep. Right? And this memory pattern is a combination of memory shallow and memory deep. And it comes and it, what do you call, meets the incoming impulse, and it decodes the incoming impulse. Now, yeah, I'm going to go through this again. Draw this. Very yeah. So we'll start from the beginning again. 30,000 impulses come in. Now, what happens to 20,000? I'm going to take in some other talk. 10,000 of these impulses hit our astral brain called the manas. They travel up the backbone, and here they hit the astral brain called the manas. The manas is a molecular entity. These impulses which are coming in at electronic speeds. Now, these impulses, where they hit the manas at the same time from our brain, later on, as we show you the diagrams, there are two areas in the brain, memory shallow, memory deep. From them, an identical memory pattern comes to meet the incoming impulses. And they decode the incoming impulses, and a thought is formed. So we'll again go through this. What goes into the making of a thought? An incoming impulse or a tanmatra, an identical memory pattern, and there must be a third factor, that they must meet in a medium called the manas, the astral brain. They must meet in that medium. Now, once this happens, so this is happening, say 30,000 impulses come in a second. Out of those 30,000, 20,000 go somewhere else. 10,000 hit the manas, and the manas, there an identical memory pattern comes and it decodes the impulse and it creates a thought. Now these thoughts, they are created at a speed of 120 per second. Somebody is not. 120 per second. So you can see 10,000 have come in, 120 thoughts are created. The balance out of 10,000, which don't get decoded by the identical memory patterns, right? They vanish in an area of the brain called the silent area. He calls this in yoga as the Bindu Chakra. Now, these 120 thoughts are not real thoughts, they are thought forms. So there will be no language in these thoughts. In the thinking of an Adivasi, or in the thinking of us, or in thinking of somebody from another country, the thought forms will be very similar. It is when the thought forms are taken into language that we say his language is French and my language is Hindi or whatever it is. But before the thought form became language, it was a thought form. These thought forms travel up the upper cortex of the brain, and here they are decoded by what he calls IESM centers. I'm not going into that today, right? But out of those 120 thoughts, every second, 16 thoughts are registered. Now, I hope I've tried to make this a little clear. 30,000 come in, 20,000 go somewhere else. 10,000 meet the astral brain called the manas. From the memory part of the brain, an identical memory pattern comes. So there is a incoming impulse plus memory pattern. Incoming impulse plus memory pattern. Put it on top of it. Incoming impulse plus memory pattern. So incoming impulse plus.
इसमें सिल गया है ना? I don't know. I think so. Just a minute, sir. Please, I request everyone to please mute themselves. Neenu Jain, please mute yourself.
Sorry.
It disturbs the flow of the speaker, please.
Sorry.
Now we have to understand over here that three things are needed for a thought to be formed. An incoming impulse, an identical memory pattern, and they must meet in the medium of the astral brain called the manas. Right? So they meet in the medium of the astral brain called the manas. Now the manas being molecular, the manas, if it can flow, it can, because a molecular thing can take the shape of anything. Water is molecular. It takes the shape of the vessel in which we put the water. So the flow of the manas can be dammed. This damming of the flow of the manas, in normal language, we call it as meditation, right? Ms. Tawariaji Sahib calls it as a pause. You pause the manas, you dam the manas. So, can I do the drawing?
Yes.
Just let me just see. Give me another piece of paper. Right. So I'll just show you over here. Here I've drawn this.
Yes.
So we have the incoming.
Yeah.
We have the incoming impulse plus memory pattern, and they meet in the medium of the manas. Now this manas is molecular. So I can stop this manas by meditating. I stop this manas. So if I stop this manas, these two meet in a vacuum. The incoming impulse and the identical memory pattern, they meet in a vacuum. When they meet in a vacuum, a thought cannot be formed. A thought cannot be formed. Right? Now, this is a long journey in this from the 120 thoughts to come to a state where we can stop the thoughts for 1 second. Right? So when they both meet, we dam the manas either by meditating or a pause, which is the same thing. And we hold the manas back. So the incoming impulse and the memory pattern, they meet in a vacuum. A thought cannot be formed. And the energy of the incoming impulse stays over here. Now we put the brain diagram. Right? Now he says that if we can hold this state, which he calls as dharana, if we can hold this state for 1 second, if we can hold this state of 1 second, then we have stopped 120 thoughts being formed. Right? Am I coming across in this? I hope so. Right? Okay. Now, so just take this up. Take it up. Can you take it? I want the brain stem. Right. Okay. Now I'll just show it over here. Take it a little higher.
It is already higher. It just come up there in 1 second.
Okay. It takes time.
Yeah.
Okay. Now you see the incoming impulse. They can see what I'm showing. No, here. Oh. The incoming impulses are going up. They are coming here, and it is here that they meet a memory pattern. In this area, they meet the memory pattern, right? And then they form thought forms, and they come here, and here thought becomes language in this area, right? Now, in this area, we are holding back the manas. We are allowing them to meet without the medium of the manas, without the medium of the manas, so they cannot form a thought. Now take it down.
See the top. Huh?
Yeah, I want to see that. Okay. Now, if I can stop my thoughts for 1 second, then I save 120 thoughts. That 120 thoughts, instead of going above like this, now, that energy which has not become thought will try to open this door over here in the brain. This is called as the Brahmarandra, or the central brain channel. Right? Now, that powerful energy, so this is the minimum, it must stop for 1 second. Now, if we can stop for the thoughts for 1 second, then it goes into this memory called brain 3B. Again, I'll explain brain 3B. Now, this brain 3B contains all our deep memories. Let me just try to explain all deep memory. What is deep memory over here? Let me try to explain. Our Shastra says that every moment we are giving a sanskar to ourselves. Right? So I see you, I get very angry with you. I feel I am getting angry at you, but in that moment, I am living the anger. So I am giving the impression of anger not to you, but to myself. It is impossible to get angry on anyone else. It is impossible because we have to live that anger. The other person is not living the anger, right? This imprint of anger which falls on my body-brain system is called in Shastra as a sanskar. Am I coming across in this, right? Now, I may meet you and I have a feeling of friendliness, right? So I am giving myself the, what do you call, sanskar of friendliness, right? Now, many times my actions will differ from the sanskar I give myself. I may be giving a donation to a school, right? For students to learn or something of that sort. So I feel I am a donor, but here my self-love, my ego is getting inflated that what a good donor am I, what a good boy am I. So my action is giving a donation, but the sanskar I am giving myself is of the ego. Am I coming across in this? So these sanskars which I have lived through many lifetimes, they accumulate in like political parties, like anger and irritation will be one political party and jealousy may be some other political party, etc. And they lie in this brain 3B, right? Now, normally I am not allowed to enter brain 3B. There is a one-way channel. But if you insult me and I get angry, then that anger comes out of brain 3B. Please understand that anger, which is here now in the present moment, it could be 1,000 years old. Am I coming across in this? Can you see those sanskars are lying there? All those political parties are lying over there. So that which is coming out of that, and it is decoding the incoming impulse. This guy insulted me, give it back to him. And I'm creating that thought is traveling here. I register the thought over here and I call you all kinds of names or whatever I want to call you. And the action is done. Right? Now, at that moment, I pause the manas. I don't allow the thought to be formed. Now, two things will happen over here. One, we saw that the energy will try to open the door of the Brahmarandra. So it will try to open the door of the Brahmarandra, entering into this area of brain, you will have to show, brain 3B. The second thing is when the incoming impulse came in where you insulted me, you treated me very badly, and I got angry, and then I paused that anger. I didn't allow it to become a thought. So that identical memory pattern, that sanskar of anger, which cannot manifest into anger. I paused it over there. I brought consciousness in between. I paused it over there. That sanskar dies, it burns away. And that sanskar, when it dies, it releases energy. But we'll talk about this energy later. So now we have two things. We have entered into a deeper part of the brain. Going to 3D. We've entered into a deeper part of the brain. Just that. No, just that. Sorry. Yes, so just show we have entered into this part of the brain. Plus, we have saved some energy from that sanskar which died. That sanskar was locked with energy. We have saved some energy. Now, this area 3B is normally not directly accessible. It is because we stopped thoughts for 1 second that we were able to enter this area of the brain. But when we are in deep sleep or early morning sleep, when those dreams of early morning come, it is this brain which opens up in various symbols to us. Now, here something beautiful happens in this part of the brain. Supposing we was to say that this brain cell, this is just, I'm giving a kind of symbolic interpretation, that there is a brain cell over here which has a life of, say, 3 minutes. 3 minutes. So in 3 minutes, the brain cell is born and the brain cell dies. Now, if you look at the coordination with man over here, I am born, I die, say my life is of 70 years, right? So 70 years of my time is equal to 3 minutes of the time of that brain which I have entered. So 20 years of my time will be equal to 1 second, right? Now try to understand the understanding which is going to come out of this brain. I look at you for 1 second, but in that 1 second, I gather 20 years of understanding. Can you now understand what I'm trying to say? Right? So by pausing my thoughts for 1 second, which he calls as dharana, by pausing the thoughts for 1 second, he calls as dharana, we open up that part of the brain. Our consciousness penetrates that brain, which is normally inaccessible to man. And if from that brain, if I can look at you for 1 second, then I don't understand you in 1 second, I understand you in 20 years. Can you see how time compresses when we are in that brain? I mean, if we study from that brain for 1 hour, right, then we have 20 lifetimes of study. Okay, right? And I'm not talking just on the horizontal plane. I'm talking of a penetration on a very vertical scale also. So I'm just giving you a small outline of Tawariya Sahib science. Later on, we'll go very deep into this. Now, supposing he said, now Mr. Tawariya is saying something more over here. He's saying that supposing we can stop the thoughts for, instead of 1 second, we stop the thoughts for 10 seconds. So he's saying, if we have stopped for 1 second, it is dharana. If we have stopped for 10 seconds, it is dhyana. It is dhyana. Right? Now again, go back to that. And you'll have to show. So now he is going here and just show over there. So we penetrated brain 3B. Show that. Right? Right? But if we can stop the thoughts for 10 seconds, then we go further into the brain and we penetrate this brain 2A. He calls this as universal divine mind. He calls this brain as and he says in that universal divine mind, which is omnipotent, omniscient, omnipresent, all questions are answered immediately. There is no, what do you call, process of thinking or anything. There is a direct answer to your question immediately. It is like there is no, what do you call, difference of space-time over there. So he says that first, if we can stop the thoughts for 1 second, then we gather the energy of 120 thoughts. We enter into brain 3B. And then if we can stop for 10 seconds, we have gathered the energy of 1200 thoughts, which pushes this our way into the Brahmarandra, much deeper into the Brahmarandra. And we come and we are able to communicate with the mind of God. Now he says that if can we reach a state where we have paused the thoughts, we have paused the manas, not allowed the incoming impulse to beat identical memory pattern for a period of 100 seconds. And this he calls as Samadhi, right? And if we can do that, then we penetrate into this brain 2B, and our God is sitting over there. The divine fragment is sitting over there. The Atma is sitting over there. And we have a direct connection with the divine fragment. Then we come to the whichever area of the brain we have access, whether to 3B, whether 2A, 2B, we come back for action again to the forebrain, to the IESM centers, and then we create a conscious thought and decide what has to be done. So this area, IESM, is like the screen of the TV. Whichever software we are accessing in our computer, in the end, we have to come back to the screen. We first were accessing the software with thoughts which went around the cortex, right? The whole just going round, right? This, yeah. This was where we accessed first. Then we went to 3B, then we went to 2A, and then we went to 2B. All these, whatever we access in the end will be seen on the screen of the computer. So I've just given you in a nutshell what Tawariaji's science of this, the brain is. We saw that to make a thought, 3 things are necessary. The impulse which comes from outside, the memory pattern which comes from inside, and they must meet in a medium called manas. By meditating, we pull the medium away. So then they meet in a vacuum. In the vacuum, the memory pattern or sanskar dies out. The pure energy of tanmatra remains. If we can do that for 1 second, it opens the Brahmarandra, the central brain cavity. From here it opens and it pushes its way through. And our whole journey of higher yoga starts from there. I don't know if I've been able to come across, I hope I've been able to explain something of Tawariya Sahib's, what do you call, you see, later on we'll go much deeper into this. So I please just give me a thumbs up if you've understood the thing. Yeah, thank you. It's a little difficult. Now in this sutra, this is, we'll take his translation. This translation of this sutra. Have you switched off the AC? No.
What?
Whatever.
Just open that.
Hey, don't change my setting here. Okay, now Tawariaji side is, you see now what we did last time. Vitarka, Tark means thinking, Vichara, right? Deeper thinking, Ananda, Asmita, I am, Rupa, Anugamata, Sampragnat. These are the forms of Sampragnat Samadhi. Now he's saying he has totally given a different view of this sutra. The awareness of an object is attained by concentration on its fourfold nature. So now he has taken this sutra directly into a high state of seeing, the form through examination, the quality or guna through discriminative participation, the purpose through inspiration, and the soul through identification. Right? Now, I mean, the whole way he has interpreted this sutra is so very different. Right? But I still want to say that between 120 thoughts and stopping the thought, we took it as a direct journey, right? But there are many steps in between, right? So these are the steps which we are going to talk about in this sutra, because this whole sutra is about thinking. Now, recently I was pondering upon something, and do we think, or does something control our thinking? Recently, you know, the news has been very flashy, and somebody is in jail, and this is happening, and that is happening. And I was wondering, you know, that these events which we see on TV, do they control my thinking? You see, I see something on TV that somebody has gone to jail or something of that sort. A famous person has gone to jail, right? And then does that start a process of thinking inside? Am I waiting for the next news bulletin to give me something more to think about? Right? Or we can say that we are all waiting for India to play the first game in the cricket match, right? And suddenly everything went haywire. And for a long time, was our thinking controlled by that cricket match? So what goes into our thinking? There must be an observation of our normal thinking before we can think of going to deeper levels. And we will see that a lot of our normal thinking is not thinking. It is being totally controlled by news, media, and events which are happening outside. We don't think, they make us think. And in this process, we lose the capacity to think for ourselves. We become totally media oriented, or what you call social media oriented. And everything we think comes from there. That is, we can discuss it among friends. And when we discuss it among friends, there will be a mass opinion on one side, and there will be another opinion on another side. And we don't realize that we are just robots being controlled by something which has happened in social media, happened on the TV. So in yoga, in this sutra, we want to awaken to thinking of our own individual thinking, not controlled by outside events. Right? I mean, in the morning, supposing we get the news, somebody very near to us has died, then half the day goes in thinking about that, talking to the wife, talking to this, and we don't realize that some news event came from outside and totally controlled our thinking for half the day. We have not had a single thought of our own. And this very, what you call, gifted process which we have of thinking, we just don't use it. So that is the first thing. We must observe, are we thinking from within ourselves, or is our thinking controlled by something from outside? It is nice to listen to the news, or little, there's some spice in life. You can have some spice in life, but put a kind of, what do you call, that for 5 minutes or 10 minutes is okay. That's it. Don't want to bother about it for the rest of the day or something of that sort, right? But if it keeps on coming back and then we want to hear the next bulletin and what is the latest and what has happened on this, then we are totally controlled by the media, and we must observe this within ourselves. Another question we must ask ourselves is, are we thinking or remembering? You see, when we memorize things, they remain in a very shallow part of the mind. When we go into school, we memorize the tables. So 1:12 tables we have to memorize, right? So every time somebody says 6 9s 54 comes automatically. There's no thinking involved. It is a pure process of remembering. There is no thinking involved. And we don't realize that as we grow older, this library which we have inside, which is in a very shallow part of the brain, it collects all fixed opinions from somewhere. It collects fixed lines from somewhere. It has read something somewhere and it puts it over there, right? So it has a whole collection of ready-made answers, right, to everything. Many people love to collect one-liners, and sometimes those one-liners are very good. They may be of some guru, or they may be of Jesus Christ, or whatever, and they have a whole library of one-liners. You ask them something, they will answer you in a one-liner, in a saying, or in a quotation, but they are not thinking, they are remembering. And everything that we have memorized is in a very shallow part of our minds. Very, very shallow part. We are not accessing the higher parts of the mind. So the first question we have to ask ourselves, is our thinking directed by events? Is our thinking directed by something outside? Or does the thinking happen from inside? And the second question we ask ourselves is, are we thinking or remembering? Like the tables in school in the first standard, have we got a whole library of fixed, what do you call, sentences? And we don't have to think for the rest of our lives. Anybody asks us any question, from those fixed sentences, we just pull out something and give it back to him, and that's the end of the matter, right? Beautiful life, don't need to think at all. So, and this can happen, even for something like the Yoga Sutra. Somebody can memorize the Yoga Sutra. He can memorize, and he memorizes it so well that he can just answer but he's not thinking, he's just remembering. Again, it is fixed in a lower part of the mind. Now we want to go into deeper areas of the mind. We want to take our thinking to the deeper areas of the mind. Now, when we go into the deeper areas, one of the things that starts happening is that we start seeing many things at the same time. Because we have risen a little in consciousness, we have accessed higher areas of the mind, and at deeper levels of the mind, suddenly the same thing suddenly becomes multi-dimensional, and we start seeing its components, its parts, right? So, supposing in that area of the mind, we have one small idea, and we have a small idea that I want to walk on the spiritual path. And suddenly in that deeper area of the mind, it becomes multi-dimensional. We see so many different angles of just walking on the spiritual path. We're going to talk about this a little bit. And the third thing is that, what is my level of understanding? Right? Anything I deny can never become my understanding. It is only when I acknowledge something and allow it to go deeper within me, it is only when I give consent to something and I allow it to go deeper within me that slowly understanding grows, right? So if somebody says that there is God and I say I can't see God, so it's all nonsense, forget about it, right? Then I've not consented, I've denied it immediately. Then I cannot go to a deeper understanding of what is God, what does he mean by God? Is there a higher state of being? Can we rise to that higher state of being? Is there a pathway to that higher state of being, right? Then all that becomes closed to me. I can't go. So for anything to go deeper into the mind, to deeper levels of the mind, to deeper levels of understanding, first we must be able to acknowledge it and give our consent to it. But many people are fixed in their ideas. There may be God, but God has to be like this, right? He has to be wearing orange clothes. If he's wearing white clothes, he's not God, right? So then those fixed ideas block out everything else. And if we tell them something else, they could be offended also. Now, we try to understand the world we live in. It is a world of effects. It is not a world of causes. What we see with our five senses are effects. The causes are hidden behind the effects. So if you say, I don't know, I watch a lot of detective serials. So there is a dead body and the detective comes. And now what he's seeing is the dead body. But from that dead body, he's thinking in a different way to say what could have happened that this person was murdered, right? So he's using the dead body, which is in front of the eyes, but he's now thinking in a totally different way. And he's trying to penetrate into deeper areas of his mind and try to come to a thing where he can understand how this person was murdered, what happened over here. So he's trying to, what he sees in the dead body is the effect. It is not the cause. But from the effect, he moves into his mind and he tries to look for cause and cause and cause. And he moves in this journey of finding the cause till he finds out how this guy was murdered. So it is this area of causes in which we must work. And we don't work in this area of causes. Now, truth being multidimensional, from one angle, it looks like this. From another angle, it looks like this. Now, I say that to go towards truth, you have to climb the ladder of consciousness. So we'll say there is a ladder of consciousness, and by increasing our level of consciousness, we climb this ladder of consciousness. So that is one angle. Now, the same thing I can look from a different angle is that what is my level of being? Where am I in my being? Am I still in negative emotions? Am I still reacting all the time? Right? Or have I risen above reactions? So it is the same ladder of consciousness, but I'm now looking at it from a different angle. The same ladder of consciousness can be looked at and worked upon through the dimension of causes. There is cause and there is cause of cause. Now, have we ever worked upon this ladder of causes? Now, the causes at a very superficial level are apparent to our five senses, right? We look at them from our five senses. But every effect that happens in this phenomenal world, behind it, there are multiple causes. And as we grow in consciousness, we rise from lower causes into higher causes. I'll give you a simple, very simple example. That both of us may be sitting and chit-chatting, talking to each other. And I get up from there, I say I have to go home. And I move a couple of spaces, and you have left a chair in the pathway. Okay? And my leg bangs against the chair, and maybe a little blood or something comes out, whatever. Right? Now, the apparent cause is that, why did you leave this chair in the pathway? Can't you see that somebody has to walk over here, right? And you shouldn't be leaving the chair over there. Now, usually we see the apparent cause. And this is the apparent cause, of course. Nobody can deny it. And sometimes we get identified with the apparent cause. We fall from even the apparent cause to a lower cause. So I'll say, I'm quite sure you don't like me, right? And you have purposely left that, chair in the way. You wanted me to, bang my leg against that chair. And this is the type of person you are. So from the apparent cause that he left it in the way, I have now fallen deeper into hypnosis, deeper into the sleep of life, into identification. I'm telling him that you did this on purpose. You did this on purpose. And you see, there's a ladder of causes. You did this on purpose. You left it here by mistake, right? There's a ladder of causes. I may, have a certain insight at that time. And I'll say, okay, when I got up, when I was talking with you, and the moment I got up from talking with you, I was thinking about something, and my attention was in some daydreaming or thinking about something. And I was in a state of behoshi, what they call, not conscious. And I banged against the chair. It's definitely my fault, right? It cannot be your fault. So now from the lowest cause, I have moved up to a little higher cause. Am I coming across in this? You see, there's a ladder of causes. There's a ladder of causes. And everything is born from that one ultimate cause. In that one ultimate causes, all causes disappear. You see, in ordinary Shastra Bhasha, we say, कि उसकी इच्छा शक्ति, that one ultimate cause, and all causes are a small part of that one ultimate cause. But I can't go to that ultimate cause directly. I have to go step by step. I have to climb the ladder. Now, to be able to climb this ladder of causes, I have to come to some basic understanding, And the basic understanding is that whatever happens in my life is never anyone else's fault. No one else is at fault. If I'm in pain and suffering at this moment in my life, nobody else is at fault, right? I can tell you that I started this business, and at the right time, I came to ask you for a loan, and you didn't give me the loan, so my business flopped, right? Now, I mean, that's an apparent cause. Now, suddenly I want to rise this, so I say, no, it's not possible. Whatever happens in my life, I am responsible. Unless I have sown some seed somewhere, nothing can come to meet me free of hand. There has to be some invitation sown somewhere in some time space. Now we go back to the same example. Supposing I realize a little deeper that for the past 2 days, I've been in a very negative mood, right? I've been snapping at people, right? I'm not listening to others. right? If somebody asks me for a little help, I tell them to get lost. And I've been in this angry, irritated state, in this very negative state for 2 days. I realized this negative state I've been in this 2 days, definitely I was going to invite something like banging my leg against the chair or anything else. This very state was going to invite some mishap in my life. Now I've risen to a more higher cause. Can you see? Right? And this is how we rise up this ladder of causes. And maybe someday, like Tawariaji Sahib says, that we stop the thoughts for 1 second and we penetrate into brain 3B. And suddenly in that 3B, all our sanskars are lying over there. And we see that, oh, I've gathered so much of irritation over the years. That irritation needed an excuse to express itself. It forced me to bang my leg against the chair over there. The cause was right over here. Suddenly we have penetrated in a time and space where causes are lying over there in that time and space. They're all lying over there. And if we can see that with our minds, we have stopped this thought for 1 second. We have entered that space and suddenly we see the cause of everything that happens in our life. Every small thing is lying in this brain 2B. And then we realize we can transform that. And when we transform it, we sow the seeds of consciousness. And when we sow the seeds of consciousness, the future that comes to meet us will be a totally different future. I hope I've come across in what I'm saying over here. So there's this ladder of causes, and we have to practice it everything in our life. And the first step is be free of complaining, be free of finding fault somewhere else. Look for the cause, higher dimension, higher dimension. Start practicing climbing this ladder of cause, because that ultimate cause is God himself. And just by doing this exercise, we can reach into higher states of being. But we are so habituated to look for causes at a very sensual level. I'll say the cause is my mother-in-law, or somebody will say the cause is this, and all kinds of things, right? I married wrongly, or I did this wrongly, etc., etc. Now, the second thing is, so now instead of thinking from effects, our thinking has entered into another dimension of thinking from causes. And we realize that one effect in life can have multiple causes. And all those multiple causes go back to one cause of cause, the ultimate cause, which Tawariaji Sahib calls the ultimate motive. Now, we must see that all negative emotions take us to wrong causes. Supposing I have a girlfriend, and one day I'm suddenly suspicious of my girlfriend. So I'm in this state of suspicion. And I suddenly find that state of suspicion is very, what you call, a powerful state. It talks to me, that state of suspicion. It says, see, that day she did this there, but it was because of this. And that day she did this, no, it was because of this. And suddenly I'm looking at her effects and finding all wrong causes. Suspicion always leads to wrong causes. So by what you call practicing climbing the ladder of cause in life, we rise to higher levels of thinking. And we then rise to a level where we can see the ultimate cause. Now we'll again take the example of the chair. So the chair is an effect, but the causes which went into the chair were many: the upholstery, the wood which went in, the carpenter who made it. But the ultimate cause, which is a small part of the final cause, right? It is one, that man wanted something to relax in. And this is the soul of the chair. This is the soul of the chair. And when we see that this whole existence is moving, trying to move to a higher state of being, vitarka, vichara, anand. It is moving to a state of anand, whether it is a small human being, whether it is a galaxy, whether it is a star, whether it is a small amoeba. Everything is trying to move in that, what you call, evolutionary process into a higher state of being called anand, right? And this small chair, where it gives me this, what do you call, its end to give me relaxation, is a part of that whole evolutionary process. I don't know whether, and suddenly I'm now looking at the chair, I'm seeing the form, what he's saying, examination is a fourfold process, and you come to the soul of the chair, and the soul of the chair is a part of that evolutionary process. That ultimate soul of life, which wants to reach a state of anand, wants to reach a state of bliss. And that is the cause of all causes. Everyone is looking for a higher state of happiness, whether we are looking for it in money, whether we are looking for it in the opposite sex, whether we are looking for it in possessions, whether we are looking for it in power, whether we say that there is a immediate source within ourselves which is not dependent on having possessions or money. That source is hidden within us. Can we meditatively move towards that? We are still looking for that happiness within ourselves. And it is that move towards that happiness which is the cause of all cause. Now, this is bordering on madness, sometimes. It can be bordering on madness. When we say that everything has an ultimate cause, which is a part of that universal cause. All our thinking, it's sort of, we feel as if everything is being shaken and we are dissolving. Because the reasoning mind cannot cope with this. Now, just imagine we read in the paper that somebody raped somebody. Or we read in the paper that somebody murdered somebody. Right? Now, if at a certain level of cause of causes, we were to realize that even in that murdering somebody, he was seeking happiness in that ultimate cause. And even in that raping of somebody, he was seeking happiness in that ultimate cause. Suddenly, all our reasoning, we will find ourselves, all boundaries and all everything is being shaken up. This is something beyond what we can digest, right? And in that, we suddenly lose everything, all rational thinking. I mean, we border on madness over here. And in that moment, we will see that everything is the cause of everything, and everything has one cause. The planets are exactly where they are. The flying birds are exactly where they are. My tea is over and the tea leaves are exactly where they are. The slippers are outside the door exactly where they are. The food on the table is lying where it is. And the footprints in the sand are exactly where they are. And everything is related. Each is the cause of the other. In that sudden magnitude where the cause of cause opens up, suddenly everything that we are will dissolve. Our small I will dissolve, and we'll get a glimpse of that ultimate cause. So now we'll go into what Tawariaji Sahib says about this sutra. I hope I've taken you on a small journey of reasoning from lower to higher. The awareness of an object is attained by concentration on its fourfold nature, the form through examination. Now, form is of two kinds. Form is of two kinds. There is subtle form and there is gross form. Our body-brain system is made up of three things: life, form, material. Life comes from the sun. Form comes from the planets. And material comes from the earth. Now, before we were born, we had a form. We had a form. That form was composed of planetary matter. That is why we call it as an astral body. Now, that form was seeking matter. So it was looking for a mother and father, right? And the mother and father filled in matter, blood, what you call skin, bones, etc. And that form, the what you call life, came from the sun, and that form became alive. Right? So we can say before we were born, we were a subtle form. And that subtle form it sought material. And by taking on that material through mother and father, right, that subtle form became an express form or a gross form. When we die, the material goes back to the earth. The prana which brought life goes back to the sun. But the form remains in between. And that form again seeks material. Again, it seeks material to express itself. Now, now form is made by planetary matter. The magnetism which binds a form is made by planetary matter. I don't want to go too deep into this, otherwise we'll start bordering on astrology and all kinds of things, right? But it is made of planetary matter, right? So he's saying the awareness of an object, the form through examination. So he sees a person. He sees a person and he sees the form. Now, first he looks at the gross form. Now, the gross form will tell him many things. Say he looks at the muscular tension. He looks at the muscular tension, and that tells him what kind of sanskars the subtle form is holding. If the muscles are tense and tight, if they are holding a lot of tension, then by examination of the gross form, he sees that this person in his life has taken so much of pain and he's holding all those sanskars of pain in his subtle form. And those sanskars of pain are nothing but, magnetism of the planets. It is bound up over there. So he's saying, the awareness of an object is attained by concentration on its fourfold nature, the form through examination, the gross form, the subtle form, the quality or guna through discriminative participation. Now, what is discrimination? What is discrimination? Discrimination is the ability to distinct between two forces, two matters, to make a distinction. Now, we must understand the, what do you call, philosophy of the three gunas. And in India, in Hinduism, the three gunas are what you call depicted as three gods, the three gunas. The creative aspect as Brahma, the destructive aspect as Shiva, and the neutralizing or the preserving aspect as Vishnu. Right? So, in most religions, God has only been depicted as a creative aspect. The very idea of God as a destructive aspect is not there so prominently in other religions. It is definitely hidden there, but it is not there so prominently that there is a destructive aspect of God. Right? But when we look at it, right, supposing there was no destructive aspect, then the fish in the sea would just multiply till there was no ocean to hold the fish. There has to be a destructive aspect. I'll give you a small example. I'll tell you in Gujarati first, and then I'll tell you in English. One of my gurus was Swami Ram Dulare, and I spent 7 years with him. And I mean, he was hammer and chisel. He chiseled out a statue from something. And one of his, one of his students was a famous Gujarati author called Pushkar Bhai. I talked about him in the last one of our episodes. And Pushkar Bhai's father died. So Bapu took a postcard and he wrote, "Priya Pushkar, तुम्हारा बाप जो जिंदा होता और उसका बाप जो जिंदा होता और उसका बाप जो जिंदा होता." And he filled up the whole passport, a whole postcard. In those days there were postcards, right? And at the end he wrote, "In सबको कौन संभालता, तुम्हारा बाप या मेरा बाप?" And you see, he's now giving you a big lesson over here that the destructive aspect is very necessary in our life, right? Just imagine if none of us were to die, there would be no place to park our cars also, right? I mean, so there has to be a destructive aspect. And that's why Hinduism, depicts one of the gunas as tamaguna, the destructive force, the passive force in life, right? And it is as Shiva. Now he's saying that you must be able to discriminate between the gunas. We must have a way of discriminating between the gunas. I'll just give a few examples. I want to start a business. That is Rajaguna, the active force. But I start my business and overnight the government increases the price of cement or something and my whole business goes into loss. So all the obstacles which come are passive force or tamagun. Now between the active force and the passive force, active being Brahma, the passive being Shiva, right? Destructive, right? There is a third force called Vishnu. It is called the neutralizing force. The neutralizing force is called Sattva. Sattva means white, intelligence, buddhi. right? And if I'm able to use that sattva, then I can overcome the price of cement by maybe taking a loan from somewhere or something, and in the long run pay off that loan and make my business prosper. So the use of the third force, the first force being the active force, the second force being the passive force, Rajagun, Tamagun, the third being Sattva, I use that to overcome. It gives me the intelligence. But if I cannot have the third force, then the prices of cement are going to overcome me, and my business is, even before I really started it, is going to go in a loss, right? And this happens in everything in life, And he's saying, now come to a state of discriminative participation, where you can observe the workings of the gunas. And when we can observe the workings of the gunas, we know where to bring in the third force, the neutralizing force, to increase sattva, so that where we have to overcome the passive force, that is the destructive force, we overcome that. And where we have to also overcome the active force, we have to use the intelligence. I'll give you another example of the overcoming the active force. The farmer sows the seeds in the ground in his farm. And then comes a long period of waiting when the rains fall. Now, so sowing the seeds is active force. Waiting is passive force, Shiva. Waiting for the rains to come. Now, supposing if there was no passive force, so passive force, destructive is not always negative. Can you see? If there was no passive force, he would not have the patience to wait. After sowing the seeds, the next day again, he would dig up the seeds and see, has it grown a little or not grown a little, right? And then, of course, you destroy the seeds also, right? So the passive force has its own play in life, right? But it is that intelligence which tells us to go in the direction of the active or to go in the direction of the passive, and that is called as sattva, the third guna. So rajas, tamas, and sattva. Let us take a few examples. It will give us some idea of this. Supposing I'm very hungry, so I say food is conducting active force for me. There is rajagun in the food, but I have filled my stomach. The same food which was very tasty 15 minutes ago is now conducting passive force, tamaguna, to me. Am I coming across in this, right? Supposing a woman does not have a child. We see this in life. It's not that we don't see this. Then anybody else's child, it creates the desire within her. So that other person's child is conducting active force to her, right? But one day she has her own child. Now other people's children are conducting passive force to her. There is tamas. And you will see this in many families where the older brother has a child and the younger brother and the younger wife are looking after that child so well. But then the younger brother has his own child, and suddenly that older brother's child, which was conducting the active force, is now conducting the passive force. And this is a part of family life, joint family life, right? Now, I'm very keen to get married to someone. She is conducting active force for me, Rajagun, right? But 6 months after a marriage, I say she gets up late in the morning. She doesn't make tea for me. I have to make my own tea, right? Etc., etc. Now, she's no longer conducting active force. She's conducting passive force for me, Tamaguna. I may have a good friend, and we spend good time together and happy, and we talk, etc., go for dinners, etc. He's conducting active force. But one day I ask him for a loan, and then his whole mood changes towards me. Now he's conducting passive force, the same friend. We were so excited about the cricket match. Oh, come on, India is having a cricket match. The TV was conducting active force. After 5 wickets, the TV was conducting passive force. I may see a new car in an advertisement, and that car is conducting active force these features, that features in the car. I go and buy the car. After 6 months, a new model comes with so many different features. Now the same car which 6 months ago was conducting active force is now conducting passive force. And this happens in everything in life. The stock market is going up. I say, oh, maybe I'll make a good deal overnight, get all my savings from the bank, put it in the stock market. I'm going to double my money tomorrow. But then the stock market crashes. It was conducting active force. Now it is conducting passive force, right? So he's saying there must be a discriminative participation in life, that each moment in life, we must be able to see what the object in front of us, what force it is conducting. Now, this girl who supposing I'm in love with this girl, I want to marry this girl, she's conducting active force. But now I bring in discriminative participation. I say that whatever she's doing today is one part of her mind. But in the unconscious part of her mind, so many other things are lying which even she cannot see. She is not aware of those things. Tomorrow she's going to say no to make a cup of tea for me. And if I can, through discriminative participation, if I can see the active and the passive simultaneously, if I can see the opposites in life simultaneously, if then I get married to her, if 6 months later she changes, she doesn't get up early in the morning, she says, make your own tea, make a sandwich for yourself, whatever. I don't get, I'm not hurt at all there's no hurt within me. I don't expect anything because I knew from the beginning that this was lying inside and this would go in and the active would become passive and passive would become active. And it is saying that whenever you see any object in life, try to see what force that object is conducting and then bring in discriminative participation. Right? I'm very tired, the chair is conducting active force. But I'm in a hurry to go, the chair is conducting passive force. And when I see life through the eyes of the three forces, and I'm discriminately, I can participate in the action of the three forces. I can change active to passive and passive to active. Then I've suddenly learned a very deep secret in life. I can never be hurt again. I can never be upset again. It's not possible. Even if my best friend changes, I can never be upset. Even if somebody I've married changes, I can never be upset because I saw both the sides from the beginning. There was discriminative participation. So he says that the awareness of an object is attained by concentration on its fourfold nature, the form through examination, the guna through discriminative participation. Now, in this, we must see that we are blind to Sattva Guna. We can't see Sattva Guna. A couple may decide to have a child. And everything is okay. All the reports are normal. Everything is okay. But still, over a period of time, they are not able to conceive a child. So we see that active and passive, male and female, are together, but something is missing which is not allowing the child to be conceived. And that is the third force. And normally at our level of understanding, our level of thinking, we are blind to this third force. Right? I may have a business where I buy something for 5 rupees and sell it for 10 rupees. So I double the profit, right? Double. I mean, I should be making a fantastic profit. But at the end of the year, when I make my balance sheet, I'll see I'm in a loss. Why am I in a loss? there was some third factor which I just couldn't think of, which was I was blind to. And it is this third factor which is called as the third force, which is Vishnu, and it is Sattva. That even if active and passive, the what you call the duality of life is there, but if Vishnu is, his presence is not there over there, then even if the reports of the girl are normal, the reports of the male are normal, but still something will be missing. And it is this that we see in so many places in life. Everything is there. The person has money, the person has family, but happiness is not there. And happiness is not there. Something is missing. That Vishnu factor is missing. And he says you must rise up to that level of discriminative participation, where you see the play and you realize that here you have to hold on to active and passive, wait for something to come, wait, because the third force comes from a higher level. And then you know that this thing will work out in life. And I've seen this in Tawariaji side. I mean, people used to come to ask him that this is not happening. And he would just give the answer because he knew when the third force would come and make things happen. I'll give you one example. There was this girl who had left her husband in Bangalore, and she was coming to him every month and saying, my husband is not giving me a divorce. And one day after 1 year, she came with her horoscopes and she threw them on the table like this and got very angry on him that you're not giving any proper answer. My husband is not giving divorce. You tell me something. And he says, you take the horoscopes back. You don't need of the horoscopes. And so what date is it today? So she says 20th of January. So he says, wait till 2nd of February. Then, of course, he talked in Gujarati. Okay, Biji February sudhi apdi garaj, Biji February pachi any garaj. On 2nd of February, he's going to fall in love with somebody. He'll automatically come to you for a divorce, right? The ability to see the third force, the ability to see the third force. I'm not saying we have to go as deep as he goes, but we are usually third force blind. And he says that when you're looking at an object, there must be discriminative participation, the power of discrimination where you see the forces and the working of the forces. Now, the third he calls as the purpose. The purpose. Where is it? Huh? Oh, the purpose through inspiration. The purpose through inspiration. Inspiration is a form of emotional perception. Now, in negative emotions, we see emotional perception. Supposing I'm very spiteful of you. So I'm holding on to this negative emotion of being spiteful towards you. I have to take revenge with you, right? And I'm holding on to this negative emotion. That emotion has a perception of life. It tells me about life. The emotion will start speaking to me. It will give me different tips on how to create trouble for you, right? He'll say, okay, he has done this with you. You go and whisper in his wife's ear that you find out what he was doing on this day at that time. Then you see what the fight which happens in his house. Now, that perception, that knowledge of going and whispering into his wife's ear, it comes out of this negative emotion of what you call spite or revenge. Am I coming across in this? That emotions have a perception of life. There is an emotional perception of life. Or it may tell me of different ways of how to hurt you more, right? So when I'm in this negative emotion of jealousy or, revenge or something, all sorts of different thoughts of how to hurt you more, the emotion speaks to me. as if it's giving me new knowledge of life, how to be more cunning in life, how to be more deceptive in life. When we realize this, then we can understand the power of perception in positive emotions. When negative emotions have so much power of perception, the knowledge in negative, can we imagine the power? That is, he says, where you see the purpose through inspiration. The purpose through inspiration. Now, I want to at a certain level of consciousness, things become more alive. We look at life, but then we are not just looking at the table over here. The table is very alive to us. So then I won't put my glass, bang it on the table. I'll put it softly because I'm looking at even the table may not be alive, but at that level of consciousness, the table becomes alive. The staircase becomes alive. So I won't, thunder down the stairs. I'll put my feet very softly on the stairs. I'll close the door softly because now at this state of consciousness, things are becoming alive. And he says, you will see the purpose. You will observe the purpose. And when you observe the purpose, we'll go back to the example of the chair. When we observe the purpose of the chair is to give me comfort, to give me relaxation. And I suddenly see the purpose. But I say that something is on a higher shelf over here, and I say I can't find my stool to go to that higher shelf. I'll take the chair, I'll pull the chair and use the chair as a stool. Now, if I'm seeing the purpose of the chair, if I'm seeing the chair as something alive, I will say, I don't want to use this chair as a stool. Let me look at the stool. The purpose for the stool is to climb on the stool and to get that from a higher this thing. But if the chair is something dead, then I don't care. I'll just pull the chair. And so he's saying an emotional perception grows, a positive emotion. In everything we see a purpose. We see what was the purpose, and we don't want to lower the purpose. We can take it to a higher purpose. The chair is for relaxation. I will do meditation in the chair. Let me take it to a higher purpose, right? But I won't use the chair as a stool, take it to a lower purpose. So he said there's an emotional perception. And this is translated in the sutra as the state of Anand. Now, just see this. I am in this state of upsetness, anger, irritation. And in this, I become conscious. And I try to separate from that state. And to separate in that state, there is a deep feeling of my presence, holding my presence, feeling of I. And in that holding of I separate from the anger. I'm looking at the anger, I'm looking at the irritation as if I'm looking at a chair, as if I'm looking at a piece of furniture. In this moment of separation from anger, in this moment of freedom from anger, I suddenly see for thousands of years I've been trying to be free of this anger. And in this moment I am free. It is the state of Anand. Vitarka vichara Ananda. Right? So there's emotional perspective. So you see the purpose through emotional perception, through inspiration. And then finally he says that you understand the soul through identification. Here he gives the technique of what you call synchronizing breath. Right? I'll just finish over here. He gives the technique of synchronizing the breath. And he says, when you meet a person, try to synchronize your breath with that person. So then you are breathing what he is breathing. Suddenly you will start feeling his thoughts, his feelings, what he is going through. And you will understand the soul of that person, what all sanskars that soul is holding on to. You will read that person. And he calls this as the soul through identification. You have identified your breathing with his breathing. An experiment which I used to do for many years was I would go in the fields where the, what you call, wheat was growing, and I would sit away, and I would just keep on looking at one stalk of wheat and try to become the wheat. When the wind blows, the wheat would move, and I would feel my inner body moving, my subtle energy body moving. And over a period of time, there is a, there is a kind of identification. There's a oneness between our subtle body and the subtle body of that stalk of wheat. And suddenly we feel what is happening when it takes nutrients from the soil. We feel what is happening when the wind touches it. And that is the identification with that. We have become one with that. It is a kind of mini samadhi with that. And so he says that in his, that when we there is a fourfold examination. Where is that? The awareness of an object is attained by a concentration on its fourfold nature, its form, its quality or guna, its purpose, and its soul. So this is the way he saw as Sutra 17, right? We will stop over here. Hemaji, I want to take 1 week's break. Do I take it this week or the week after? Whichever you tell me.
Entirely up to you.
No, you tell me, whatever. So you want to continue next week, then I'll take the week after 1 week's break or whatever is up.
So next week is 16th. Next week is 16.
So would you like to?
We will continue for 16. 23rd.
Okay, so we'll take the next 2 sutras on the 16th.
Okay.
18th and 19th. And then if you can give me 1 week break, I'll take one.
Sure, sir. Sure, sir. Anytime.
Thank you. Any questions?
Yeah.
No question.
People can unmute if they have any question. Yes, Gaurji. Yes, sir.
How is this mode? Can I ask, please, Hemaji?
Yeah, please.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Namaste. Amazing class. Namaste, Rajenji. Amazing class as usual. Really, really inspired by all your divine knowledge. It's just that, what we're talking about now, is this a karmic, the Vishnu, the third, is it karmic? The gunas, are they related to the karmas? Hello?
Yeah, I'll give a nutshell. Right? Supposing I'm holding 100 sanskars of anger, right, in my brain, which we talked about, brain 2B, right?
Yeah.
So say I'm holding 100 sanskars of anger. Then what am I? I'm definitely not my name. I am those 100 sanskars. You understand what I'm saying? Right?
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
Now, those 100 sanskars, what is their desire? It's a political party. What is their desire?
To win.
No, from 100, they want to become 101.
Oh, yeah, 101. Yeah. So
want to increase their majority.
Go to a higher stage.
They want to increase their majority.
Yeah, to go to a higher stage.
It's a horizontal stage. It's not a higher stage.
Expansion.
Right?
Yeah.
So from 100, they want to become 101.
Yeah.
You get what I'm trying to say? So how are they going to become 101?
Yes, I do.
How are they going to become 101? Okay. Now, supposing you treat me badly, how I get angry, how have I become angry? Your voice is breaking. Huh?
Yeah, I'll put
How
my
have,
video off and I'll listen to you because I think it's because of the voice. Let me
okay.
just put my
How have I become angry? Out of those 100 angers which are lying within me, one anger has come out, it has hypnotized me, and I have become angry upon you. Right?
Yeah.
Now, when I become angry on you, one anger came out and one I created. So one came out, how many after the anger is over, how many go back in? Two.
Two, yeah.
Right?
So,
one which came out and one which went in. Now, how much of anger do I have inside? 101.
One. Yeah.
Now that 101 wants to become 102. So now they will create situations in my life where from 101 they will become 102. So they will only invite those events in life where I get angry. Can you understand this? Right?
Yeah, I do.
Can you understand karma?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Yeah. Okay.
Right. So again, they will attract some event in life where I'll get angry and they'll become 103.
Yeah.
Now, if my guru pushes me a little, right, and he says, be conscious. So one anger comes out, it wants to hypnotize me to become angry. I say no to it. I say, I am conscious in this moment. And if that anger cannot take a friend back inside, it dies.
Mm-hmm.
So it does not make me angry. So it does not create a new anger, new friend, right?
Yeah.
So it dies, that anger, right? And it is holding energy. That energy comes to me. How many are left inside?
99.
99. So now the future events of life will be dictated by 99 anger. Can you see? I've changed my future.
Yeah, that's true. Okay, I
I'm definitely not going to bang my leg against the chair.
Yeah. That's true. Wonderful experience. Thank you so much. Thanks, I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Right. Okay. No, this is very important because sometimes in our lives we invite major accidents and things like that. And just a small investment of consciousness where we change our sanskar, even one sanskar of anger, we overcome that accident which was going to happen at some time. So just that very understanding brings about change.
So there is a question in the chat box. Can you please explain in little detail how form comes from planetary matter?
Very difficult to explain in this thing. What I can say is that the power to hold a thought, that is, we have to hold the thought in a coat of magnetism. If we are lacking in that magnetism, then we will try to hold the thought and the thought will escape us. We will not be able to hold the thought. Now, some people have the power of holding the thought for a long time. So they have more magnetism. So magnetism comes from planetary matter, right? But we lose magnetism through negative emotions. Say I get angry, then I'm losing the good matter of Mars, right? Say I gamble a lot, then I'm losing the good matter of Jupiter, right? So if I'm losing the good matter of the planets, then I am not able to hold my thoughts. Now, even to be a good gambler, you have to hold your thoughts inside, right? But if by being identified with gambling, you may be losing that very matter which allows you to hold the thoughts. So it is this planetary matter which allows us to hold thoughts. It creates a magnetic field where we can hold a thought. An architect has to hold a thought to what you call design a house inside, right? So many great poets, great writers, musicians, they have to hold that piece of music. Sometimes a piece of music descends, and if they just go into a moment of daydreaming and they come back, they've forgotten the music. It's gone. They've not been able to hold it. And that is, they're lacking in right magnetism from the planets. I can't explain it further now, but later on when we go into what the planetary matter is and how the matter increases the soul, we'll go deeper into this.
Okay, sir. Anyone else, please?
हाँ हेमा जी,
जी सर,
मैं पूछना चाहता हूँ सर, ये ब्रह्म sir, ये Brahmarandra or medulla oblongata, they are connected inside. I mean, ये
Yes.
exactly Brahmarandra वही होता है जहाँ पे
Brahmarandra is the central brain cavity. Central brain cavity, right? The central brain cavity has 4 doors, right? From here,
ये राजन
here, and here, right? So 4 doors. And usually we are not able to enter that central brain cavity except from here. That is also unconsciously, not consciously, right? But when we create that energy of no thoughts for 1 second, it penetrates the central brain cavity, the Brahmarandra.
Okay.
It has 4 doors.
Thank you. Thank you.
There's a beautiful story that what do you call? Normally, a person cannot die in Sirshasana, right? Because the soul escapes from this opening, it goes out through the nose and goes. Now, in Sirshasana, if the soul wants to escape, it has to open this above door. And that higher door can only be open through deep yoga practices. Many years ago, I think 25, 30 years ago, on History Channel, there was a beautiful serial called Saint Peter. I don't know if you remember the serial. And Saint Peter was Christ's main disciple. And after Christ had gone, he was on the cross. It was Peter who was looking after the disciples. And Peter had reached a certain stage in his yoga, but this door had not opened. And Christ came to Peter and he gave him a vision 3 times. The last time Christ came, he told Peter that your turn is coming, they're going to arrest you, and you're going to die on the cross, right? When you're on the cross, tell them to turn the cross upside down. Tell them to turn the cross upside down. Now, if you're in Sirshasana, you cannot die unless the soul escapes from here, right? You have to fall down and die, right? So first the body will fall down, but on the cross, the body can't fall down, right? And so that little bit of yoga, which he had not mastered, Christ told him a technique of how to master it through the moment of death, where the soul escaped from here. And that opening of the Brahmarandra was opened with Peter. So, I mean, the other openings have to be opened through practices. We saw how we opened this opening, but this opening is open for us. And we can also do many things through this opening into the Brahmarandra. Right? Okay. Shall we stop over here?
Gee, sir, I don't think there are any more questions.
Okay, thank you very much. Next week.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Would you like to close? Sir?
Yes, sir, please. You close now, sir.
Okay. Sehna bhavatu, sehno bhunatu, sarviryam karvavahi, tejasvina vaditamastu, ma vidvishavahi. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Thank you.